Hit it, Phil.
Can it be the breeze that fills the trees with rare and magic perfume? Oh, no, it isn't the breeze. It's Jackson time. La, da, da, da.
Stay tuned.
Right after this episode.
For our discussion.
From Television City in Hollywood, the Jack Benny Program with Jack's guest, Gary Cooper. Brought to you by Lucky Strike. Get the genuine article. Get the honest taste of a Lucky Strike.
That was a wonderful reception. I think I'll come out again. Thank you. I thought that sounded just a little bit stronger. That's enough. That's enough. Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the warm-up of the Ed Sullivan Show. You know, here I am again, back for my 9th year with Lucky Strike. Gosh, how time flies. Just imagine, since I first went on television, all the rest of you are 9 years older. But I want to tell you, this is my first show of the season. I must say that it's rather difficult to be funny with all the things that are happening in the world today, like the crisis in the Middle East, the trouble in Algeria, the unsettled situation in Formosa, postage going up to 4 cents, murder. Yesterday alone cost me 12 cents just to answer my fan mail. So if you like me, please just watch, don't write. But anyway, I must say that it's really wonderful to be back here again. And now I would like to present to you my guest star, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm very, very proud. I'd like to get him on as soon as possible. I'm very proud to present my guest star, who is one of the great, great stars of the motion picture industry, and really one of the top personalities in Hollywood. And here he is, Gary Cooper. You already got more applause than I did. Well, Gary, I want to tell you that's really a thrill having you here on my first show, you know?
Thank you, Jack.
Really, it's just... Now, I know that you have had a lot of offers to appear on different live television shows, and you've refused all of them. And yet, when I asked you to come on my show, you immediately accepted.
Well, to tell you the truth, Jack, I was going to turn you down, too. But when you told me that your guests this afternoon on your show were going to be John Foster Dulles, Bernard Baruch, and President Eisenhower, I just couldn't refuse.
How do you like that? A big star. I pull a gag on him that wouldn't work on Dennis Day.
What did you say?
Nothing. But, Gary, let me ask you something. First of all, I do want to thank you for donating your services.
Wait. No, Jack. What do you mean donating? I expect to be paid for this appearance.
Paid?
Yes. I may walk slowly to the bank, but when I get there, I want them to have a reason for saying howdy.
You mean you want money for this?
$10,000.
$10,000 for this one affair. But, Gary, I really thought you were coming on my show because of our great friendship. I mean, we've been friends for years. I mean, I've been to your home for dinner 3-4 nights a week. I don't know how many times for lunch.
Well, I'm up, Jack.
You're supposed to say 10,000 covers. So I'll say it for you. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Anybody can make a mistake. He hurt his back anyway. Listen. But, you know, Gary hurt his back, and I didn't think he would appear, and he did anyway. And so even if you miss a line, Gary, believe me, it's all right. Now, look, you know, in your career in show business, during your career, you've won many, many citations and awards and Oscars and everything. What award do you think gave you the biggest thrill?
Well, that happened just 2 weeks ago.
What was that?
I came in second at a hula hoop contest.
Well, second isn't bad for a guy that has no hips. That's pretty good. That's an ad lib. You know what an ad lib is, don't you?
Yes. An ad lib is when you step away from the script and louse up the whole show.
$10,000. He's fussy. Now, Gary, one thing that I did want to ask you, though, I understand you just made a picture they're called Man of the West. And I hear this is the most exciting picture that you've ever done. The suspense is terrific, and the photography is out of this world.
Well, Jack, we think we have a good one, yeah.
You know, huh? Well, I'm so anxious to see it. When are they having the sneak preview, you know, where they invite all of us celebrities?
Well, they had that last night.
I must have gone to bed early. Well, how is it I didn't get an invitation?
Well, Jack, when it comes to a free preview, you're the one man who never needs an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
First time you see a searchlight in the sky, you put on your tuxedo and head right for it.
What?
In our business, you're known as Benny the Moth.
Well, for a fella who spent all his life saying they went that-a-way, you're pretty funny. Well, anyway, Gary, thanks very, very much for appearing on the show.
Well,
What?
Well, I'm not going just yet, Jack.
You're not?
No, I thought that being as this is my first time as a guest star on television, I'd like to sing a song.
Oh, Gary, Gary, I didn't know that, really, I didn't know that you sing.
Oh, yes, I've been singing for years.
Eh?
I'm a regular Jeff Chandler.
Well, have you prepared a number?
Oh, yes, and the sportsmen are going to back me up.
The Sportsmen?
Yeah.
You mean my quartet? Oh, well, come on out here then, fellas.
Come on out, fellas.
Oh, the Sportsmen quartet. Oh, for heaven's sake. And you really have a singing voice, huh? And you're prepared, you sing well. Well, let's hear it then. I'm anxious. Go right ahead. I certainly want to hear this.
Johnny is a joker.
He's a bird.
A very funny joker.
He's a bird.
But when he jokes for honey,
He's a dog.
his joker name's a honey.
What a dog.
Johnny is a joker that's trying to steal my baby.
He's a bird dog.
Johnny sings a love song.
Like a bird.
He sings the sweetest love song.
You ever heard?
But when he sings to my gal,
He's a hound.
to me he's just a wolf dog.
On the prowl.
Johnny wants to fly away and puppy love my baby.
He's a bird dog.
Hey, bird dog, get away from my chick. Hey, bird dog, you better get away from me. Bird dog, you better find a chick and say, Johnny kissed the teacher.
He's a bird.
He kissed her up to reach her.
He's a bird.
He's a teacher's pet now.
He's a dog.
What he wants, he gets now.
What a dog.
He even made the teacher let him sit next to my baby.
He's a bird dog.
He even made the teacher let him sit next to my baby. He's a bird dog.
Yep.
Gary, I got to say one thing. You've got a lot of guts.
Jack, I thought you'd like it.
Yeah.
I got to run along now. I got to get back to the studio. We're continuing our casting.
Casting?
Yeah, you see, we think so much of The Man of the West that we've already started on making a sequel.
A sequel to your picture, Man of the West?
Yep.
Well, Gary, would there be a part in this picture for me, you think?
Well, Jack, the only part not cast yet is the part of my brother.
Well, good. I'll take it.
No, it's my twin brother.
Oh. Well, it would be a little... Smog doesn't bother you, does it? Well, couldn't you play the part sitting down all the way through the picture?
I'm afraid not.
Well, then I guess my height sort of lets me out, huh?
Well, don't let that worry you, Jack. If it weren't that, it'd be something else.
Well, thank you, my friend. Gary really hurt his back doing the hula hoop. I think he'd be on. But, you know, this has always been my luck in picture. You see, I'm too short to play Gary's brother, and I was too tall for Toulouse-Lautrec. But, you know, ladies and gentlemen, have you noticed Don Wilson hasn't been on this first show, and the reason is because he's in Atlantic City, and he's going to open in a big Broadway play tomorrow night, a play called Make a Million. I love the title, you know. And he's going to open on Broadway. And, of course, he's going to fly in and be on nearly all of my future shows. But we do want to wish Don Wilson a lot of luck and this whole show. And meanwhile, the Sportsman Quartet are going to dedicate a number to Don Wilson.
Never was a man who could forget the taste of a genuine cigarette. Get the honest taste a man can like. The honest taste of a Lucky Strike. The honest taste of a Lucky Strike.
How do you like our new commercial, Don? Too bad you couldn't be here to bring it on.
But don't you worry, Don. Don't you fret.
Your substitute can really sell a cigarette. Don, meet Donna.
Everybody loves a lover. I'm a lover. Everybody loves me. You have all heard Doris Day sing this way. Now we have another version.
Everybody loves a Lucky, loves the honest taste, oh yes they do.
And I love everybody since I fell in love with you.
Hey there, Don, how do you like your substitute? She's not fat, not a bit, and she's kinda cute. You can see she's not very tall, and a bit small. Nothing at all like our own Don Wilson.
LSM, LSMFT, Lucky Strike. LSM, LSMFT, you will like.
Lucky
Strike, like the Lucky now. What do you say?
Sure enough, really okay.
Everybody loves a Lucky. I sell honest Luckies. Yes, I do.
lucky smoker, too.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your coming down for this audition, but the part we're casting in the sequel to Man of the West is the part of Gary Cooper's twin brother. And I'm afraid the two of you won't do. Would you mind waiting for a minute?
No, I don't mind.
Sorry, fellows. Maybe next time, huh? Look, Mr. Cooper will be here in a few minutes, and we'll run the scene then. In the meantime, would you mind telling me your name?
Houston. Bob Houston.
And your address?
4946 Whitsett.
Oh, hi, Gary. Sorry I was late. I had to make an appearance on the Jack Benny show. Oh, I thought you were going to be on for only a few minutes. Well, I was only supposed to be on for a few minutes, but I thought I'd stay a little longer. The president was watching. Well, I was kind of busy here, and I didn't get time to see it. How'd it go? Oh, pretty good. Of course, I threw in a few ad-libs. You know what an ad-lib is, don't you? Well, that's when somebody steps away from the script and saves the whole show. Gary, I want you to meet Bob Houston. He's going to audition for the part of your twin brother. Fine. You're about the right height. Should we get going? Yeah, let's do. All right, fellas, let's get ready for the scene, huh? All right, see, you sit over there.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Bentley.
Yeah?
Another actor just came in. He wants to try out for the part.
Well, if he's the right time, you can have the next audition. Send him in.
Okay. You can come in now.
Look, fellas, we'll start. Would you mind stepping over here for a minute? How do you do?
Howdy.
Do you mind telling me your name?
Morgan. Tex Morgan.
Tex Morgan, huh?
Yep. Well, guess there's no use waiting because I'm certainly fit to play the part of Gary Cooper. I look so much like him.
Do you mind telling me where you live?
What's that?
Where do you live?
10 North Frederick. Now, look, at no use taking any time, because I got an important appointment pretty soon.
Well, we'll try not to rush things, but what time is your appointment?
If he says high noon, I'll ad-lib a bullet right between his eyes.
What'd you say, Shorty?
If it's all right with you, can we get on with it?
Okay, what do I do?
Nothing. There's another gentleman ahead of you.
Well, there's no sense of that. I'm fit for the part of his twin brother.
Would you mind sitting down, sir, right there, if you don't mind?
Okay. But I'm a watchman. I'm next, remember that.
All right now, fellas. At the beginning of this scene, I want the three of you playing cards with his twin brother. Now get a little closer to the table. Yeah, that'll be better for the camera.
Oh, don't forsake me, oh, my darling, on this our wedding day.
Quiet!
I'm just trying to get in the mood.
You just watch Mr. Houston. He's the one that's going to audition. You better watch him.
Well, I'll sure be a-watching him. I want to tell you something, Mr. Houston. You better be good at this, because I'm auditioning the part next.
All right, fellas, let's get ready, huh? You sit down there. Okay, fellas, start the scene. Action!
I'll have 2 cards.
Give me one.
2. I'll take 3. Just a minute. Saw you dealing from the bottom of the deck.
Drop those guns. Put them away.
But there's my twin brother, and I'm here to see this is a fair fight.
All right.
Okay, Morgan, you're next. Hey, Morgan, where you going?
We're going to make a sequel to Toulouse-Lautrec.
Jack will be back in just a moment, but first, here's a word about the honest taste of a Lucky Strike.
Pardon me. I see you smoke Luckies. Yes, I do. A genuine cigarette. Sure is. Fine tobacco from end to end. A wonderful smoke, a Lucky Strike. Honest taste. Gee, I'd like a Lucky right now. Well, I don't blame you. It's the best tasting cigarette I ever smoked. So long. Well, looks like I'll have to smoke my own.
Never was a man who could forget the taste of a genuine cigarette. Get the honest taste a man can like. The honest taste of a Lucky Strike. The honest taste of a Lucky Strike.
You know, when you pay good money for a cigarette, get the genuine article. Get the honest taste of a Lucky Strike. This is not a gag. I just can't get up. Somebody help me. Would you help me up, please? Just, there you go. There. Thank you. Good thing they didn't hear him say, "You're welcome." It would have cost me $80. Union, you know. Wow. Well, this is my last with Westerns. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'd like to bring out my guest star, Gary Cooper. Gary? I want to tell you that I certainly am looking forward to seeing your picture, Man of the West, and I think the sequel to it will be very, very good, even if I'm not in it, you see. And, Gary, you know, what is there about Westerns that are so wonderful? I mean, even the real old ones that you see on television are good. I mean, they keep going along all the time. Why is that, huh?
Well, Jack, I think one reason is that they're not dated.
What do you mean?
Well, can you tell the difference between a 1912 and a 1958 horse?
No. I never thought of that. You can't, can you?
No, and you have to be darn careful when you walk out onto a used horse lot.
Oh, I will. Thank you, Gary, again. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something I do not usually do on television shows, and that's introduce people. But there are two ladies here who are seeing a television show in the studio for the very first time. One is Mrs. Gary Cooper, and I'd like to have her just take a bow. And his lovely daughter, Maria. Maria, take a bow. Will you? It's beautiful. Isn't that nice? You know, Mary and I have been the friends of the Coopers so many years, really. I wasn't kidding before. We have dinner at each other's house all the time. It really happens. And Mrs. Cooper's first name is Rocky. I've only known her by the name of Rocky. And finally, the other day, after all these years, I said, what does Rocky mean? And she says, Veronica. And I didn't know that before. I always thought her name was Rocky. I thought she used to be a fighter or something. Oh, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to announce now, of course, next week, I want you to be sure and watch Bachelor Father, starring John Forsythe. Then I'll be back in 2 weeks, and wait till I tell you who my guest is, 2 weeks from today. Now, he's been with me on radio for maybe 20 years. And yet, this is the first time on television that he has ever been on my Lucky Strike program, and that's Phil Harris. Be sure and save that saloon set for the next show. You know, as I mentioned, Phil Harris, you see, he used to conduct the orchestra for me in radio. For 20 years, he used to lead the orchestra and knows absolutely nothing about music. But you can mention Beethoven's Fifth. This he knows about. Anything in fifth. But he can conduct an orchestra, and it's merely up and thing. Am I through? Oh. Well, thank you very, very much. I could have talked for hours, but thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, hello again. This is Buck Benny speaking. This is our first recording of 2025. I'm so excited to have this, and it's been the first time we've had a brand new one for you guys. We've had a lot in the can for a long time and things, and even this, for us, it's early 2025. You're probably going to see this mid 2025 or in February, March. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, it is delightful to be together. This is the first episode of season 9 of the Jack Benny Show. And Jack even talks about that, which I always think is kind of cool that he does. He brings up the fact that Don's not on this episode because Don's off and doing a project. Jack says he likes the title of it. There's something about $1 million or something. And so it was kind of cool. And maybe people have more insight than that. But the folks we have here today, of course, are our good friend John. Hey, John.
Hello.
Hello. And we have Terry back. Hey, Terry.
Hello.
And we have Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hi,
So
welcome.
this will be a fun one. This is a kind of old home week for us. Usually we have somebody that's new, and for us, this is our original 4 of us doing this that we started the whole thing off with years ago. I'm so delighted that we keep on doing this. I'm so delighted it's 2025 and we can do this. I think our earliest ones are 2020 maybe. So maybe 2019. I'm not sure. So it's been a while. Yeah. So anyway, this is episode stars Gary Cooper in it. Gary Cooper does a really nice job. I think I really enjoy him in here. He seems a little uncomfortable on live TV, and I certainly would be. I don't see, I don't think, we sort of assume all these, oh, they're big actors and everything. Well, they're big actors on film when they have how many times to reshoot a scene. And I would think film actors would have the hardest time with live things because so many of them, especially the really good ones, are used to being able to. Do you want to take that again? Yeah, let's take it again. I don't think I got it quite right. Let me do it again. And sometimes they probably get used to doing things 3 or 4 times to work themselves up to it to really get it to shine. And this has to be from the get-go. You have to pull it off. So that's kind of unique. The other thing is we were just talking about before we started. We've started to have these intros at the end of the episode instead of before it, so we can spoil it completely, which is lovely, because then we can really talk about it. So please, if you somehow fast forwarded to this part, watch the episode first and then tune into us. But let's start it out by going over to my friend John. John, what were your thoughts on this one?
I loved it. It's great to see Gary Cooper. I had a kind of a slow introduction to Gary Cooper, listening to old radio shows and hearing a lot of references about him. But until you see a Gary Cooper movie, you don't quite get his deal. And so I watched the preview for this movie that he's promoting. I've never seen it before. What's the movie called? Man of the West or something? Anyways, I watched the preview.
Man of the West.
Yeah, that's right. And its sort of tagline is he walks slow, he talks slow, but he draws fast. So that's the kind of thing, it's very of its time, 50s Western. It doesn't seem like the greatest Western ever. But then when you translate, that sort of persona to the comedy world, like Daryl said, I think it's hilarious. Like his delivery is so odd, and I do think there's something about maybe they said he just flew in or something, he didn't get a rehearsal or something. You can tell he's like reading off cue cards or something where it's not quite right, but I find that even more like interesting. It's not something you normally see. It's not polished. You never know what's going to happen, and so when he misses that line and Jack has to ad lib, like that's the fun of live TV. But my favorite part, because we have seen, I think, a different version of this, maybe a filmed version.
Yes.
So some of the great things, like his twin in the saloon, like that is hilarious and great. But I had seen it before. I don't remember seeing him singing Bird Dog before, which I thought was great.
Clint Walker did the remake.
Right.
And didn't sing Bird Dog.
And we were talking about how in the remake, before we started taping, we were talking about how in the remake, the one thing I like better about the remake, or at least makes a remake unique, is since it's Clint Walker, and Clint Walker is such a huge guy, both tall but also just massive, that Jack climbs up his body as he's doing the beginning piece. They have a beginning piece very much like this one. Actually, the episode follows very closely to the live version, but other than the fact with Gary, especially since they mentioned Gary's back's messed up, that I'm glad he didn't try and climb Gary the same way and he tried to climb Clint Walker. But the scene in the saloon with everybody beating up on the brother, it's just set up so well, and Jack's reactions are so good that it's just really enjoyable. And it's one of those things that I think when you first saw this, if it's your first time seeing it, you can't, so much of Jack's shows you can kind of predict, especially if you've watched or listened to the radio shows and things. This one, I don't think anybody going into it is necessarily going to be able to predict what's going to happen. Now, when Jack's going up for a part that someone else is going up for, it always backfires on Jack. So it's going to backfire, but you just don't see how. Yeah. And then as soon as you see the fight start to take place, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But it works.
Daryl, I think that's such a good point, because if it were a radio show, it would be Jack misreading the lines or Jack doing things wrong.
Right.
Here is, and get live TV, which that fight had to be choreographed with all the breakaway furniture and the acrobatics.
And the window, it was...
Yeah, and then to think it's all live on the stage, and the camera work has to then pivot to Jack's just facial reaction. Again, something you couldn't do on radio. So,
well, and even to do it live, you can see you don't often get, I mean, I guess you do sometimes, but getting a fight where you have to stage the fight, get in the right camera angle to of course, they're not really punching each other and things, though they're breaking chairs on each other, though they're breakaway chairs and things. But you have to have the camera in the right place to emphasize a punch that doesn't really land, look like it's landing. Some of this, and you can definitely tell it's the live version, because in the live version sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes they don't get the camera quite where it needs to be, or the punch doesn't connect as much, and so there you can see that there's 6 inches between where the guy's fist is and the guy's face is, and it's not going to work. But some of that's going to happen. It's an amazing brawl that goes on, and some of the set that's supposed to break doesn't break or doesn't quite do the way it's supposed to, and so they have to deal with that. But then you're also panicked. Then you got the other camera or whatever that or it's the same, I don't know what's going on, but it goes to Jack as his reaction shots, and that's a whole different thing. What was that?
I bet there were multiple cameras.
Yeah, there had to be.
Someone back in the booth would be saying, cut.
Yeah, because now cut over to Jack, and now do this, and it'd be so hard to pick. Okay, am I showing the fight scene that's fun to watch, or am I showing Jack's reaction to the fight scene that is also fun to watch in a different way? So you got that. But then what I was going to say was when they filmed it, the filmed version, then they could reshoot it as many times as they needed to, so it worked. In my book, it's the one of the few times where the filmed version probably works better for the fight than the live version does, because then you can knock a person to the window as many times as you need to get it shot right and look right, and everything seems to land, and all of that, all the punches and everything, which makes sense in a studio version. But you just don't see a lot of live action fight scenes filmed, and this is why. But let's go over to Terry. Terry, what were your thoughts on this thing?
Well, I far preferred the live version. Yeah. I will say this almost universally about the Jack Benny Show. He is so much better with a live audience, and the spontaneity and the energy is so much more satisfying for me as a viewer. And I agree with you, Daryl. There are some benefits to shooting something on film or on video, but to me, especially with comedy, getting the real feedback from a live audience is worth so much.
Oh yeah.
As you all know, I'm producing a stage show right now. We're in rehearsals for a staged reading of the Debs play that we had on Imaginary Theater in the middle of last year. And having an audience does make a difference for performers, and having a big audience is good for people watching, because you get feedback from each other. And I think that's true in television too. Having a studio audience makes a difference. I was delighted to see how well Gary Cooper did, because you're right, he was a movie actor and wasn't accustomed to working in front of a live audience. And he was the classic strong silent type. Everybody who imitated him had a one-word quote from him, which was "yup." That was the Gary Cooper impression. But he started out, ironically, as a silent film actor.
Right.
And he grew up on a ranch in Montana. He was kind of the real deal, although I think his parents were from England. But he was a cowboy, and was interested in the arts, and became a very, very good actor throughout his long career. But this was, I think, the first time he was ever on television, first time probably in front of a live audience.
Well, they played that up. Well. They mentioned that like it was his first time.
His stature, that the movie studios trying to protect what they had left that was special about movies were trying really hard to keep their top stars. And yet, as we've seen with Marilyn Monroe and Humphrey Bogart, Benny was one of the TV shows that movie actors trusted. You won't make fun of me. You'll make me, look good. You'll do everything to make this a success. So.
When he first came out, he had a funny line about why he agreed to do this. He said he was told that John Foster Dulles and Bernard Baruch and Dwight Eisenhower would all be there. And for those who don't know, Dulles was the Secretary of State, and Bernard Baruch was a very wealthy man who got involved in the diplomatic corps, became a statesman, and of course Eisenhower had been president. But you know, he's that was his excuse for coming out. Well, all these other people are going to be here, and of course,
Yeah. Now,
but
was
I thought he
Foster
did really
Dulles,
well in comedy. I'm sorry, Daryl, I missed that one.
what was his name again? Foster Dulles, who was
John Foster Dulles.
Yeah. Was he known to be a world traveler or something?
Yes.
Okay.
No
He was the
wonder
Henry
I
Kissinger
just
of the day.
I was just watching our New Year's episode, the Lieutenant skit that he does in '56, and he mentions John Foster Dulles, and the mention of him is like sort of, oh, he was here and then he was there and he was like he was all over the planet sort of thing, and so I didn't.
Well, he was
know.
Secretary of State. He was always negotiating with world leaders.
I think Carol Burnett sang a song like "I'm in love with John Foster Dulles." So I mean, it's a great name.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that it came up with it. I just happened to see that and then saw this episode right after it. So,
but in what year was this? 50 something?
50.
September of '58.
You know, he was a very well known commodity at that time.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that Jack Benny says at the beginning, "Oh, we're the warm up for Ed Sullivan." So Ed Sullivan must have been a huge show at the time that came after him.
Yeah,
it sure was. So that's a lock-in Sunday. That'd be must-see TV on CBS for Sunday night. So
well, and who knew that Ed Sullivan was so big before he even had the Beatles on? So yeah, my goodness, he had great things in his future.
There you go.
Kathy, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, as much as in a way, a very powerhouse show to be the first show of the season to get this great star who almost never appears on TV, and then to have him sing a song that was number 2 in the charts, Bird Dog, which is a very strange song, but it's by Phil and Don Everly, but it was the younger audience would have related to that very much. I thought,
and it's absolute brilliance that they thought, oh, I mean, in a writer's room or someplace, or Jack, or who knows, I would assume it's one of his younger writers that came up with this, would have been like, oh, wouldn't it be funny to have him do Bird Dog, because it has spoken lines in it that already lend itself to this, to being someone that's not going to sing it, that's just going to say that part, and then backed with the sportsman. It worked beautifully, and it was so funny that he could just talk his way through it and be fine. So yeah,
exactly. And it's the perfect thing of like, you're making fun of like the current thing, but you're not mean about it.
Right.
And same with Gary Cooper, you're sort of like in some ways making fun of his sort of like straight laced kind of nothing kind of persona, but you're not, it's not mean.
Well, it's so brilliant. It's on 2 levels. You're both making fun of a current song, and you're making fun of your guest in a polite, fun way. You're just taking 2 things, and who would think you could combine someone like him with a current song and it's going to work in any way, shape, or form? So I thought, funny, and it's totally surprised me when I was going, what song? How is this going to pay off? And I'm like, oh wow, it really paid off, and it works in the sportsman who you want to work in anyway. So
this is another. We're so lucky to have that. No one has cut the commercials, because we rarely get to see much of the sportsman. In the shows where the commercials have been clipped, they just come on and suddenly we're on to something else. But what was the name of that song they sang? Everybody Loves a Lover. Their middle commercial with that singer whose name was Virginia Mancini. She was, that was an elaborate number, and she was a good singer too. So between that and then this amazing end commercial with Jack Benny, a film commercial placed in there, we have just got to clip that out and throw that up on Facebook and YouTube, because and to see Jack Benny.
Trust me, I will.
Good. But we have to look closely and see how much he's actually smoking.
I don't think he actually lit it, did he?
No, they used to have it in his contract that he would never actually have to smoke a Lucky because he was a cigar guy, and Mary liked Pall Mall or something. So or she liked some other brand. So they actually had it written in the contract that they would not actually have to smoke the Lucky Strikes. So
now the first Jack, let me think.
Glasses and no glasses.
The Jack Benny on the right, does have the cigarette in his mouth at the beginning, but again, I don't think he's smoking. I think he's just got it in his mouth. And then the one on the left eventually pulls one out of the pack, and then I think gets it into his mouth or close to it by the end of the commercial. But I thought it was kind of funny how they both were dealing with the cigarette pack themselves.
And Benny also didn't smoke his cigars very much. He just sort of had it in his mouth and chewed it. So
I want to go back to the singing commercial for a moment. The one with there was a interpretation of Everybody Loves a Lover, which they made Everybody Loves a Lucky. That was a big hit for Doris Day the year that this show was on, and they make reference to her in the lyrics, which I thought was a nice touch.
As well as talking about Dawn too, which was just a delightful, such an in joke for fans of the show. I looked up that I don't know how Dawn pulled this off. The show was called Make a Million, and you can find it on the Broadway database that it ran from October 23rd, so he was doing tryouts, I believe, in Atlantic City at that time. It actually ran in New York from October to July, from October 58 to July 59. And Jack had said Don will just fly back and forth to, well, he was still only doing one show a month, but still.
Yeah. And we'll see how much he's on. I mean, he's going to be on the next episode we're going to talk about, but that's a filmed episode. So it was filmed probably way earlier in the summer and things. So that's a little bit of a cheat. And maybe that's what Jack's referring to is, oh yeah, Don's going to be on knowing that he's not going to be on any of the live ones. He's only going to be on the filmed episodes perhaps. But for an audience, they don't really know. They're going to see Don every once in a while throughout the season. So yeah. But it'll be interesting for us to go back through and see, does he actually pop up in a live somewhere?
Sure. Something else that occurs in these shows of late 58, 59 is that we finally have a real director. I have commented in some of the other shows that sometime there will be a character when Jack is shown on set making the television show. And you say, something about my director. You go, who? What? What's this character? This is the real person, Don Weiss. The fella, he looks like the kid from Christmas Story, but dark hair and big round glasses. This is if it's either this or the next episode we're talking about. It's the only time he appeared on camera, but he was the director for the shows in this 12-month period.
Kathy, I'm sorry, is that the man who helped him up at the end?
It could, or that was a fellow from the audience.
No, that's a random guy from the audience.
Oh, okay.
That was a plant.
I thought it was funny that he said it's a good thing nobody heard him say you're welcome. Pay him $80.
Yeah. So, and Jeanette Iman also shows up to play these.
I thought I recognized that
parts
voice
pretty frequently. So, so hooray that she gets her screen credits. That's
so Jeanette Iman was like
real life secretary.
A secretary, okay.
And I'd always thought that the commercials were done. Well, no, some of them are definitely feel like they're done live. Certainly the one with the girl on it, I think that was live. I think they're of course them performing. It wasn't a commercial, but the Sportsman performing with Gary Cooper was live.
Yeah, but
then there's definitely some of the commercials they've shown in the past of the ones with the clock or the ones with various things, the animated pieces or whatever, that are definitely filmed and not done live. This is, I hadn't seen like a member of the cast that I can think of doing a non-live commercial, but of course with Jack, the two Jacks, this is definitely not live, or else it was very, very well done live.
No. Because he comes, I'm pretty sure it was filmed at another period for.
I mean, there weren't two Jack.
No, Or maybe half of it was filmed and the other half was live. Maybe one of the Jacks was live. That would be interesting. Anyway, but I love the two Jacks commercial, and you so seldom you ever see Jack ever do a commercial. And I don't know if that was because they don't have Don to do a commercial, and Jack said, "Well, use me if you need to," or something. I don't know. Because can you imagine? Okay,
Again,
if you're the person putting together the commercial parts of this, and Jack says, "Oh, you can use me," I would grab him too and go, "Oh, heck, we can use Jack. Let's use Jack." And,
Again, I think the opening show of the season, they wanted
Yes.
to make a big bang.
Yeah,
agreed.
It was an interesting filmed animated opening as well. I think that was new for this season.
Yes.
Just I don't know, it's starting to seem more like 60s animation rather than old school animation. So I thought that was neat. And then the ending where Jack Benny has to sort of fill for time, I thought was very interesting because like you can't tell if they're leading to something, maybe something was planned, but it doesn't seem like it, where he introduces Gary Cooper's family and then gets, the guy on stage and all that kind of stuff. And then you can start to go into something and then he's like, oh, I'm out of time. So that's it.
Don, didn't you feel that the opening was kind of that way too, where he makes two entrances? It seemed like that was not exactly an ad lib, but it was kind of a loosey thing to do.
Yeah.
I meant loosey goosey thing to do, not I Love Lucy.
Well, both the double entrances that he does, and then the part with Gary where Gary messes up the line and he helps him with it, and then they just kind of go over it. That doesn't even land because, of course, it's so mangled by that point that they just keep going. It reminded me of his radio such a loose feeling beginning to a live show that I can think of. So
yeah. But of course, I love the line where he says, "Oh, you know what an ad lib is, right?" Where someone steps away from the scripts and louses up the whole show.
They did a callback in the
which is beautiful and saves the show in the callback on the movie or whatever.
So if I were a nervous Gary Cooper, I'd be grateful to be in Jack's hands, because you can remember back to the radio episodes, he'd have people like Jack Warner and Sam Goldwyn and mayors of towns and things like that who were not used at all to being in front of a microphone. And he had a way of working with them even when they would make mistakes. He was so gentle with them and then so hard on his cast in a funny way when they would make a mistake. So.
Oh, no doubt. And this segues in well to something I've been kind of wanting to bring up a little bit is, as Kathy says, she was saying, oh, we really need to cut out the bit about the Jack commercial, and I will and post that. But I've been having fun posting shorts. So I clip these little shorts from Jack's shows and put them out there. And boy, people, from my point of view, people seem to love them because I get so many more views of the shorts than I do of like our whole, these presentations, maybe I get 500 viewers. The shorts, I've got one short that is I talk about it being the best Jack Benny joke ever, and I'm not sure if it is, but I mean, who can define? It's all subjective anyway, but it really works well. It's the joke from the grocery shopping episode for Christmas, where Jack, there's a young boy that comes up to him and has him sign his comic book. Well, one thing, everybody when it's had like close to 500,000 views now, and so when you have 500,000 views and you got all these people commenting, they figured out which comic it is, how much the comic is worth, in mint condition. It'd be like $2,500 that Jack's signing. But for me, I mean, I might pay $2,500 for the signed one if it had Jack Benny's signature on it, for sure. That's crazy. But the kid that's talking to him says that he's learning to play the violin or whatever, and Jack says, "Oh, how long have you played?" And he says, "A couple years." And Jack's like, "Oh, do you play pretty well?" "Oh, yeah." So there's a beautiful buildup, and it's like, "Oh, yes, I play pretty well, I think." And he says, "You play like me?" And he says, "I used to." And it's just so, the timing is so perfect. And it really brought up to me how, and people are mentioning, oh, that kid's timing is so good. His timing is great. But one, he hired very talented young actors to work with him. But two, he worked with them so well. I tried to explain in the comments. I don't know if it's the kids' timing or if Jack's teaching the timing he wants on the joke to the kid and working with the kid over and over again to get the timing right. Certainly, I just saw the New Year's skit where he works with a child, and a very young child, like 4 or something, maybe 3 or 4. And so this the Mel puts the kid up on a stand next to Jack so they could be kind of the same level, and they're both looking at the script because it's a recreation of a radio show, so they have the script that Jack's reading, and he's pointing out the lines of the kid as the kid reads the script along with Jack. But the kid is standing just a little, you would respectfully stand a little bit a distance from the person, and Jack wraps his hand around the kid and pulls him in tight so that they're right next to each other. And it was just so neat to see the way that Jack worked with that child to help them to get the timing right. Really kind of makes it obvious that, and boy, with his movements, with everything he does, and with him actually physically grabbing, and sort of, I think it looks like he like squeezes him a little bit or something when it's like your line's coming up, sort of thing. And so it's almost Jack. It's sort of like Jack / Edgar Bergen working with, because it's sort of like Edgar Bergen would have control over when McCarthy was going to say something. Well, this way he's kind of working with the kid, and the kid's got then borrowing Jack's timing or using Jack's timing, and he does that all the time with kids on his shows, and so everyone on his show will have their timing bettered by working with Jack. And I just think that is so cool how Jack imparts that, and folks watching it years later just go, man, everybody on the show has such good timing. And it's like, sort of, but it's Jack's timing that's making everything function. And this episode, you could really see Jack's timing working with, and certainly sometimes the timing set up well for Gary Cooper, but Gary Cooper will mess up the timing because he doesn't. Well, and for Jack, dealing with someone that's on a completely different rhythm than you're on, which makes it funny, but it also makes it harder for Jack, I would assume, to navigate his normal style of humor because he's got this other person. But he's always been able to work with politicians, the local mayor, the local governor, who doesn't know how to be an actor, but yet Jack's timing will get them through and make them be funnier than they would ever normally be.
So my favorite part is when he gets up close to Gary Cooper and he's got his straight stone face, and then Gary Cooper breaks into a laugh, and so that makes Jack break into a laugh, and they're just like stifling their smiles. It's so fun.
Oh my gosh, I noticed the exact same thing. I noticed that the double break that they have, and that's just, it just adds to the charm of the episode.
They were close friends all throughout Jack's California period. They and Barbara Stanwyck, and so that's nice that they were also close friends. So, which is probably another reason how he could get this big star on TV.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's been over to the house 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah. and how often for lunches? Who knows?
Throughout this podcast, we've talked about such and such an episode being one of my favorites. I would say this is one of my favorites. This belongs in the top, whatever, top 10, top 20.
Right.
Yes.
Especially the lives. I mean, if you're looking at it, and of course, like you say, the lives, we kind of all have concluded over the time, the lives are the best shows. So it's kind of sad in a way that folks get the ones they see on TV, the ones that are most known are all the filmed episodes. There's no live episodes shown on television. So in the current syndication packages and things, so they'd miss this whole thing, which are Jack's really best episodes. And I can totally forgive the fact that, well, like this episode, it's not going to look the best. You don't sit here we're going to do two different episodes today. One's this first one, and then the sixth one of the season, I think, is the next one we do. But one's filmed, one's not. The comparison, the filmed one is beautiful. I mean, just every character, it looks like it could have been filmed, it's in black and white, but it looks like it could have been filmed yesterday. Whereas this obviously shows a lot of wear and tear, has a lot of issues, just with the visual presentation. But the timing, the comedy, the feeling, it's unmatched in these live ones. And this, like you say, is one of the better live shows. I'd put it up there with the Marilyn Monroe episode and things where this, yeah. So Kathy, you were going to add something, I think.
Oh, I'll wait. So, I mean,
okay.
So
I'll say, it made me really excited. Imagine being in 1958 and hear Jack Benny say the teaser of next week. Phil Harris is going to be returning to the Jack Benny show. Now that is exciting.
Agreed. And he does a nice job explaining a little bit about Phil and things. I thought I'm glad he had the extra time on this episode to be able to do that. And what makes it so much more exciting than it would be normally is the fact that we have that episode. We're going to be presenting that one sequentially right after this one, and I've been wanting to present that one. We've had it pretty much ready to go for a year now or more, and just being able to share that with folks next week is going to be delightful. And it is a delightful episode, and you'll enjoy it. It's another live episode, so I think it is, or is it filmed? I can't remember, but anyway, it's not in the syndication package. So whenever they're not in the syndication package, I tend to think live. But
it was live.
Was it live? Okay. And
hey,
that's,
I have one last question, and then unfortunately I've got to jump off.
Yeah.
But at the very, very end, there was I don't know, 10 seconds or 20 seconds maybe of a woman wearing a telephone headset promoting something. Did you all understand that? Did you hear that? It's like she was talking about maybe the next show that was on or something.
I thought she was talking about Ed Sullivan or something.
Maybe that was it. I couldn't quite understand what she was saying.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of like an NBC promo bumper between shows before.
Yeah.
That's how Laura explains it in her fabulous.
It was very odd. I'd never seen anything quite like that.
No. All I could figure out is that they were lengthening the end of the show, obviously, for part of it, and then they pulled Jack stops on a dime and finishes, but maybe they were thinking, okay, we're going to tell him to stop, and it's going to take him 10 seconds, and he didn't, and so he stopped on a dime, and so then they're like, okay, now we have 20 seconds extra that we need to fill, and so then they had her come on and say what it was going to be. I don't know.
Hey, I gotta go, guys.
All right, ciao. Enjoy. Thank you, Terry, so much.
Happy New Year.
Always enjoy having you. So, all righty, we'll let you out of here. And then for the rest of us, anything else we want to cover on this episode?
The only other thing I had in my notes was when Jack Benny hums the theme song to High Noon. Do not forsake me, oh my
darling. Yeah.
And Cooper gets that joke off that says if you mention High Noon, because he'd mentioned something another Cooper film.
Yeah, and you could just feel so often with Jackie, he's good with everybody. He is. But sometimes you could just feel a warmth that comes across when he's appearing with his friends. Like you say, when he's with Barbara Stanwyck or with Gary Cooper here, that there's a familiarity that just kind of is in the air. And that sort of happens in this episode, which is delightful. I love that feeling. And then the other thing we're going to mention about the episode that I don't think we mentioned during it, I think this is before, but maybe I'm mentioning something we already said, but seeing Jack in the ultra high boots that he's wearing is so funny and so great. And yet it makes you, I always get scared for Jack with things like that, because they're asking a lot of a fairly older man. I mean, I start, as I get older myself, I realize, because I'm getting pretty close to Jack's age on some of these, I realized, boy, if I was doing that would be tricky to do. And the fact that he kind of shimmies and does some things in those boots, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And at one point, you can tell he's about ready to twist an ankle, and Gary reaches out and grabs his arm and steadies him. And had he not done that, I think Jack would have definitely twisted or fallen. And so it was like great timing on Gary Cooper's part to figure out to do that. And then you could tell, you could see on Jack, the giveaway for him is when he sits down, he's sort of, you can just see this relief coming that out. Okay, I'm done with my standing part in these boots. I can just sit here and watch what's going to happen now. But and the whole fight scene, we didn't get too much into the fight scene, but it is so over the top, and just to have everybody attacking that stuntman. I don't know if stuntmans enjoy their work or if they don't enjoy it. I don't know, who knows, but it sure looked like these stuntmen were having a heck of a lot of fun with it, because it, like I say, it was so over the top. I would assume those stuntmen getting beat up did have some, you know, bruises and things, because man, he was flying all over the place, and you can see at one point he falls down next to Jack, and you could just see him breathing so heavily that, you know, he's like, okay, a little breather here, and then he's back into the fight again and so forth. And just the interactions between he and Jack were beautiful too.
But the stillness of Jack's face and how you can get so much laughter out of that, you know, out of that reaction of seeing it, you know, his eyes get big, and, you know, so he doesn't have to, Milton Berle would be tearing up the scenery, and Jack can get so much out of just that look at the audience.
Well, I think it's interesting because reading the comments to some of our shows we post, you get interesting insights from, I mean, because we're so strange. I mean, nobody's seen as much Jack Benny as we have, and so forth. At least the vast majority of the folks haven't. And so they're related to something that's relatable to the masses, to something that everyone can relate to. Like, I've seen a number of people compare Jack Benny to Mr. Roper from Three's Company because of his reaction shots. He would look into the camera and things. Jack doesn't really look into the camera, I wouldn't say. He looks away a lot of the time.
And out at the real audience out there.
Yes.
I think because he wants their laughter.
Yes. So it's different than playing to the camera. But even folks like, and the actor that played Mr. Roper was a great actor and was on many things, but he would, his expressions were great, right? And and that's why that worked so well for that show. But I'd still say, out of everybody I've ever seen do reaction shots, nobody can do them quite like Jack. Jack's and Jack's isn't even as exaggerated as so many people. It's more subtle, but it works so well.
And to think for 23, 24 years, he didn't have that in radio.
Right, yeah.
Well, and I've always been saying that Jack...
I mean, you'd hear the radio audience in the studio laughing. He used that incredible gift of his for all those years on radio. So.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think it's interesting on I don't think it was this show. I think it was one of the other ones I watched recently, but heard Jack refer to the radio time. And he said, you know, I was on radio for 24 years. He said it a number of times in that episode. And I've always said, oh, okay, he was, because when I've calculated, it looked like he was on radio for 23 years. And then with the 15 years of television, I was like, oh, that's 38 seasons. It's too bad he didn't do 39 because it's perfect with Jack's number. But then now that he says he did 24 seasons in radio, which I'm going to take as gospel because he said it is 24, and whatever I calculate is probably wrong. Then he's definitely on 15 years in television. So that does make 39 years in prime time radio and television that we had Jack, which is a perfect number of years to do. I'm so glad he did that extra year for NBC from CBS. Yeah, from NBC
right,
in the end.
Right, but then he's got the years of the special. So if you want to, special.
We won't count those because that doesn't work.
No, that's separate. The color and their color, and they're different. So you got 39 years in primetime television, but for Jack, and I think that's absolutely perfect. We'll let that stand, and then you've got the follow-up that is the years of a good decade or so that was in doing the specials. So, but we'll let people go and enjoy Oh, well, you already enjoyed the episode, but we'll see you folks. Well, I know. We're going to have the trailer for the Phil Harris episode that we're going to get a chance for them to enjoy, and I'll try and pick out the best part of that trailer, and we'll see you folks next time for the one and only time in all of Jack Benny's 15 years that Phil Harris appears with him on television. So enjoy. Wow. Now for something very special. Kathy, what do we have now?
We've got a trailer for our upcoming episode.
Wow. John, do you like trailers?
Ooh, do I?
All right, let's see it.
Well, look at Phil. I've got a lovely surprise for you.
Oh, you
I
have,
really have.
Jackson?
I got something.
Oh,
You're going to be
gee
thrilled to
whiz.
death. You're going to see all your old boys.
Hey, look in there.
That's
Jack,
right.
Hey, all my old guys. How about that? Oh, Jack, Judy. How about that? Oh, yeah, there's old Fletcher, there's old Jimmick, there's old Wayne Mitchell. Hey, Sam. Hey, you're wearing that part way out this season, ain't you? You're coming on like the deacon. Oh, look, there's old Bagby over there. Wait a minute, just because I left, where's Frankie? Who? I'm talking about Frankie Remley. You ain't done nothing with him. Where is he? I want to see Frankie Remley.
Here he is, right here.
Where?
Frankie Remley. This is Remley.
Frank, what have you been doing? You look off. What's the matter? I stopped drinking. When? This morning. Oh, well, then you can still be saved. There you. Now, you put the strings right back on there. Everything's going to be fine. You see, Jackson, I'll start him back on light wines, and I'll give him some...
Oh, yeah, well, that'll help, yeah.
Put him in a round room. Take a little Charlotte. You're going to be all right, Clyde. I'll take you.
The clear on the end over there, you see, he had a little water on his coat and everything.
Oh, yeah.
He just swam over from Alcatraz. Now, Phil, look, I didn't bring the boys out here just for you to talk to them. Naturally, the audience are very anxious to hear you sing one of your songs, so how about putting one on?
I got one, Jackson, they'll all love. You
Okay,
ready?
go ahead.
Come with me to Alabama, let's go see my dear old mammy. She's frying eggs and broiling hammy. That's what I like about the style. Now there you can...
Wait a minute, hold it. Wait a minute. What are you talking? Wait a minute.
What's the matter with you? You wouldn't stop Harlequin these gypsies, would you?
Listen, come here.
Papa, guy only got started.
Now, wait a minute. You were with me on radio for 20 years. You sang That's What I Like About the South till it came out of my ears and everybody else's.
Well, I've done it right. I wrote the number.
You what?
I'm the composer.
You wrote the number.
I wrote the number.
Well, Phil, if I were you, I wouldn't brag about it. Those are the most ridiculous lyrics that I've ever heard in my whole life.
Well, Jackson, gee whiz, gosh, you hurt me. I don't know what to say when
it's not only my opinion. I'll prove it to you. Those lyrics simply make no sense. I'll tell you what. You want me to prove it to you? You sing the song, and I'll leave it to the audience. I want them to hear these silly, ridiculous lyrics, and that you wrote. I want you to hear these lyrics.
You mean that you don't like the tune? Is that
No,
the idea?
I don't like the word.
Appearing on tonight's program were Jan Arvan, Dick Crockett, Saul Gorse, Dick Geary, Paul Baxley, Virginia Marcini, and Virginia Steffens. Remember, 1 week from tonight on this same station, be sure and view Bachelor Fathers starring John Forsythe. And next Friday on most of these stations, watch the exciting Western series Crackdown starring Robert Culp. Brought to you by Lucky Strike, product of the American Tobacco Company.
Godfrey Gleason, Gary Moore, Rich Kellen, Danny Thomas, Robert Young, Spring Byington, lots more. Ed Sullivan's All-Star Preview.
Next on the CBS Television Network.